Hey guys, attorney Zac Bailey with the Marc Lopez Law Firm to talk a little bit about the different kinds of tests you can take in an OVWI case. So this is a question we get all the time, where there's some confusion between maybe a test taken on the roadside versus a test taken at the police station or in a hospital. So there are three main kinds of tests that we see, and the first one is a portable breath test. This is a small handheld device. You'll probably blow into a tube right there on the scene. They may take you somewhere else depending on the weather conditions to do field sobriety testing inside, and you could do the test there as well. And that's not going to be admissible in court. The police use that to try to establish probable cause on your case. That is to see if they have enough to tell you that they're going to the next step of the investigation, where they'll do a more official breath test or a blood draw. So those results can only be shown in court to show the presence of alcohol, but not the official result. And this has to do with how official that machine is, whether or not it's properly calibrated. A lot goes into that test because it's used to show that you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So something that has a little bit more variance and isn't quite as official can't be used to prove that. So that test is not admissible, but it does get you to the next stage of the investigation. A lot of times people will tell us, yeah, I consented to a test. I took that test on the scene. That doesn't mean that you necessarily consented to a test, because after that is typically when implied consent is read. Basically, what implied consent is, you have the opportunity to either consent or refuse the next test in your case, either the blood draw or the breath test. If you consent to a chemical test, the state can either give you another breath test with a bigger machine. It's usually the ECIR2 machine, and that's going to be either at the jail or at the police station or somewhere else where they have that device set up, calibrated, and ready to go. And this test is much more official than the portable test. It's a much bigger machine. It goes through much more rigorous testing, and they have all the calibrations and everything like that, the officer certifications on file with the state to show that that device is in compliance and spitting out accurate results. So they can either give you that test if you consent, or even if you consent, they can still do a blood draw and take some blood from your arm. Those are the two types of chemical tests that the state can use in your case that are more official than the portable test on the scene. Now, if you refuse that chemical test, they're not going to take you for that big ECIR2 breath machine. They're going to apply for a warrant to get a blood draw from you. And they'll take you to the hospital, and a nurse will draw your blood. So that option is available to them either if you consent or refuse, the blood draw option. You don't get to decide which chemical test you're going to take. So sometimes people are scared of needles, and they say, I only want to do the breath test, I'm not going to do the blood test. That can still count as a refusal. For any number of reasons, they may not be willing to give you a breath test. Maybe the officer who's doing the investigation isn't certified, maybe the machine isn't calibrated correctly at that time. For whatever reason, they can choose to give you a blood draw instead. And if you don't accept that blood draw option, they will apply for a warrant and mark you down as a refusal. So we always look into, if it's a blood draw case, whether or not that was because of a warrant being requested or because that was what the officer wanted to do in that instance. And that is completely up to the officer. Maybe if they're feeling nice, they'll ask you what you prefer, but they don't have to. So those are the three main kinds of tests. The big takeaway, the portable test on the scene, the results of that are not admissible. The big breath test machine that you might have taken at the station or anywhere else around the city, that is admissible, and so is a blood draw. So that's the big difference between those three tests. If you have any questions at all about this, or if you're facing an OVWI charge and want to understand better why they gave you the test that they gave, give us a call, 317-632-3642, and remember, always plead the fifth.